We're joined by Dr. Sinan Ciddi. He's a senior fellow on Turkey at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies. Welcome to the programme, Sinan. So, I mean, Erdogan, first of all, he had previously rejected these European jets, hadn't he? He wanted very much to get his hands on the superior F-35s. Is this something of a consolation prize for him?
I mean, you could look at it that way, and the Turks have been considering a number of alternatives short of the F-35. They were also looking at, I think, the F-16s, the latest versions of them, the Block 70s, which the Biden administration approved the sale of back in February 2024. The Turks thought that was a pretty hefty price tag. The Eurofighter is also pretty expensive at $10 billion for 20 brand new units. But the Turks' thinking is this. They're in the market for essentially producing their own domestic fifth-generation Khan fighter. We don't essentially know when and if that will essentially become active and viable as a fifth-generation fighter, because it needs to actually house engines in those. And without US engines right now, the Turkish engines themselves are not yet viable and operational. So in the meantime, to sort of modernize its aging air force, the Turks think that they need a stopgap measure, a platform to sort of offset this aging F-16 fleet that they have. And they've decided to go with the Eurofighter. Now, one of the sort of perceptions that you could have is that they're snubbing the United States, which has made their life very difficult for them to procure not only the F-35, but also these F-110 engines that could actually power the Khan fighter. So essentially what they're doing is they're going with the UK, which has been essentially less restrictive, and the Germans, which are also part of the manufacturing consortium of the Eurofighter, has also greenlit this. So the Turks are saying, as the Turkish foreign minister said a couple of weeks back, saying, well, we're going to seek alternatives if the US isn't going to play ball with us. And they've gone ahead and essentially signed the dotted line with the Brits. What will be interesting to see is if they actually go ahead with the procurement of this, because like I said, the Eurofighter is not cheap. It is a fourth-generation fighter, much like the F-16, and it is the first platform that Turkey is acquiring that's not US manufactured. And it's still a fourth-generation fighter, and it's not going to provide Turkey with a qualitative military edge over the F-35, which the Israelis operate, as well as the Greeks, which Turks consider a rival platform, rival countries.
Right, and from the European perspective, I mean, this is a state that's occupying EU territory right now and has been for 50 years. I'm talking, of course, about Cyprus. Turkey is also occupying parts of northern Syria with widespread reports of human rights abuses there. And, of course, President Erdogan repeatedly, publicly threatens to invade Israel. That is without even talking about the democratic backsliding inside Turkey that we can see going on right now. Why is Britain doing this? How does this align with British strategy and European strategy?
Yeah, I think that's the right sort of questions to ask. I think this is extremely short-sighted on the part of the British government, which is obviously at home looking very weak. It's up against the wall both economically and politically. Starmer is looking for wins. You know, but in itself, selling Eurofighters to Turkey, a fourth-generation fighter, is not bad. It's not a bad idea. After all, the United States was willing to sell F-16s to Turkey, and Turkey has a right to acquire that platform. The problem, as you say, is Turkey's positioning towards other European allies, as well as NATO member states such as Greece, but also European allies such as Cyprus, and the threatening position that Turkey takes towards Israel, and also essentially, a country which is like, at this moment, eroding the last vestiges of democratic governance. Starmer is just willing to overlook all of that and just say, well, I'm just willing to sell fighter jets to Turkey because you know what? That protects 20,000 jobs in the UK at home. That's income for the British industry. This is the first time that the UK has sold the Eurofighter since 2017. And that is just a good deal, an economic deal. And I don't really give a stuff about the rest of this. I need a quick win. And that plays well on domestic airwaves back in the UK as far as he's concerned. And he doesn't care about the rest. And he could probably sell the message along with the German government too, saying, look, we need all the strength that we can get against the Russian military aggression on the European heartland. And Turkey, they consider to be a strong partner against Russia as it continues to threaten the European heartland. I think that's a mistake. But, Starmer is willing to sell that. But I think the problem is, when Turkey acquires the Eurofighter, if it does develop engine capabilities to sort of power its Khan fighter in the future, one of the things that we should probably look out for is Turkey's basically going to likely chart its own course. It's not really going to be interested in collective defense, becoming a formidable and capable ally that's interested in collective defense. It's likely to, pursue its own course, whether it's, foreign policy towards Israel, towards Cyprus and Greece, which it has been threatening against. And it's really not really interested in necessarily sort of being part of a collective alliance. And as soon as it develops these capabilities, it's likely to pursue its own course. And therefore, that's why I think it's a mistake. And Starmer right now doesn't really care about that because, like we said, he's up against a political and economic wall and he needs a quick win.
All right, Sinan, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Sinan Ciddi there at the FTD.